formed this group, Captain Tennille, that everybody in California knows who Captain Tennille are, but nobody beyond that might know them. They're very hip in California. And then he played Love Will Keep Us Together, which I think was the first time I had heard the record. And after that, it seemed to become a hit. Is that when you suddenly became national, or what?
Yeah, Love Will Keep Us Together was the one that did it for us. But we had actually had a regional hit before. That's why he said that everybody had heard of us in California, because we were working in a small nightclub called the Smokehouse in the San Fernando Valley for about 2 years off and on. We built up a huge following. And we used to have DJs drop in from time to time. And one DJ, or music director from a little FM station in the Valley, said, if you record that song you wrote, The Way I Want to Touch You, in Disney Girls, we'll play it. You know, we think it's a good song. So Daryl and I took them at their word. We went out, we pressed up 250 or 500 of our own records for $250 on virgin vinyl and the whole thing, after we recorded in a little studio in the Valley. And we took it around to the radio stations, and we started getting play on it. And they came back to us and said, you know, we think you've got yourself a hit here, but according to our phone, you know, stuff, but you've got to get it in the stores or we can't keep playing it. But, you know, we were pressing up our own. We didn't know anything about distribution. So we made a deal with a local distributor who distributed it for us in L.A. and surrounding areas. And we got ourselves, we went top 10 in L.A. On sales in The Way I Want to Touch You. And that finally brought us to the attention of the record company.
I've got to ask how the name Captain Tennille came about. Is Daryl?
Well, my name is Daryl Dragon, otherwise known as the Captain.
Nice to meet you, Daryl.
But we were the Dragons, I have to admit. When we first started in nightclubs, my last name's Dragon. What's more perfect than being called the Dragons, except for when you tell your friends to go see someone called the Dragons, they're going to say the what? What do they look like? You know, and they don't really come to see you. So they had to really hear us first and like the group. And so Captain and Tennille really grew out of our pressing up of our records and needing a name and needing some identity that was different sounding, and that seemed to fill the bill at that time, because when people would ask, where do you get the name Captain, I would bring up the fact that I used to work with the Beach Boys, and that helped because they'd say, well, it gives them some credibility, that maybe I'll listen at least to what's on the record, and it all sort of ties together. And Tennille was Tony's last name, and before it wasn't Dragon then when we were working in clubs, so we just sort of held it all together and pressed up our little record, Captain and Tennille, and just thought it would be a one-shot, you know, just as a favor to the fans, really.
How do you, this is sort of a personal question away, how do you pay your bills? Do you sign the Dragons? Is it a totally different name entirely, one that maybe you don't even want to, you know, bring out right now?
No, it's actually, it's handled, the major portion of our finances are handled by our business manager and accountant, and that all goes out under our company name, Moonlight Magnolias Incorporated. But our own personal things, that we have our own little personal accounts. I signed Tony Tennille because even though Daryl and I are married, I've retained my maiden name, as a lot of women are doing today.
I noticed that. I'm just starting to figure, I think I'm just drifting into liberation right now. I'm getting to understand what it's all about. The TV show, all right, it's, so far as I know, it's been canceled, right?
Yes.
Were you happy with the TV show? Did you like the way it was operating? I think I'm going to address this to Daryl for right now and see what he has to say about it.
I'll finish it up. I was under the impression that we could do our own producing like we do our own records, and that was, you don't do that in television today, because have you ever noticed when a new group comes on, like Shields and Yarnell or Marilyn, Billy McCoo, Billy Davis Jr., we talk to them and they says, we're going to do something different, but everybody seems to have the same formula. They have an opening song, then they do a joke, and then they have a guest, and that's what TV is. For some reason, everybody thinks the network thinks the variety show should have that formula, and I think even if they went back to the old Steve Allen days, it would be a help, just to have a free kind of a feeling. And I've been trying to say this at every kind of a talk we have or an interview, because I want to get this, maybe change the network's idea.
Is it like they kind of give you what they call a successful format that you have to follow?
Yeah, that's what it is, and I think it's really sad, because we were promised a lot of things, like we were going to have guests, musical guests, right at the beginning, and our producer says, who's that? You know, some group that was a top hit, and they didn't even know who the group was. And when you're dealing with that kind of a limited scope, it's really sad because it doesn't give anything unique to the TV screen, and that's what people I really believe are looking for. Even if it fails, let it fail. You know, at least you gave it a try.
Well, the first 11 shows we did, we had a man producing who was a lovely man. Really is an excellent producer of a certain type of show. He originally produced Flip Wilson and early Dinah Shore shows and things of that sort. But he didn't know what to do with us, Daryl and I, being in pop music, and we'd bring up a name like Leo Sayer as a guest, and he'd say, who? You know, he just didn't know. So we actually flew to New York to see Fred Silverman about the 9th show we'd done. Fred Silverman is the head of programming at ABC. He's the man responsible for Roots. Well, he was the man who was responsible for us being on. And we met with him early one morning at the ABC building. Nobody was there but Fred and me and Daryl. And we said, we can't stand it, we want out. We hate, it's wrecking us, it's destroying us. We're going on the air not being what we are and not showing what our best thing is. And he said, well, what's wrong exactly? And we just started down the list. You know, I had a list all written up. He said, this is wrong and that's wrong. And he said, well, look, let's go in and pick up the rest of the season with a new producer and see if we can instigate some of these changes. Because he says, they sound great to me, the things you want to do. So we went with Dick Clark and Bill Lee. And of course, if anybody knows pop music, it's Dick Clark. And we started working with them, and they did 8 shows for us. And those shows we can actually watch without cringing.
Did you get sick of the hat jokes?
Well, yeah. I mean, at first I said, well, it's 1 or 2 hat jokes, right? It's a novelty. And then every week there were more hat jokes. It was like a sickness, you know. I appreciate a good hat joke, but there weren't too many good ones, you know.
All the letters we got, you know, they loved those stupid hat jokes, and we just hated them. It's mostly from little kids. Even now in our concerts, you know, every now and then somebody will yell, hat joke, you know, and I always just say, look, if you want a hat joke, watch our reruns, because you're never going to hear another one again.
What about your sisters now, as far as they sang along with you, too? Were you singing with them before, doing an act with them before?
Oh, no, just as we were growing up, you know, singing around the house and just fooling around, but it was never any real serious thing. I was always the one that was in music, and they were doing other things. Now, in fact, Louisa was an interior decorator, and she's now on the road with us. And my other sister, Melissa, didn't go out on the road this time because her husband, Andy, who was a member of our group, is getting his doctorate degree in music. And he had to lay out for this tour in order to work on it. And she won't go anywhere without Andy, so we missed out on having Melissa this time. But I'm sure we'll pick her up again soon. And she'll always be doing TV with us. If we have a couple of specials coming up next year, which Dick Clark and Bill Lee will be producing for us. And the sisters will be a major part of that.
This sounds like a stock question, and it probably is, but the two of you together, obviously, all the time, 24 hours a day, you work together, you live together, sleep together, obviously. What's it like? Do you have trouble getting along sometimes? Do you have trouble working together if you've had a personal argument or anything like that?
I can't, no. I mean, everybody asks us that, and trying to put myself in another person's place, I guess I can see how they might say, how can you stand it, you know, together. But we are so supportive of each other, and I could not do what I do in this business without him, because he supports me, and vice versa. We try to work it to where if one person's down a little bit, the other person's up. And also we kind of know how to give each other room. You kind of know if the other person needs to be alone, and you just kind of stay clear, but you're always there if they need them. It's the same kind of thing.
Compare it to Little House on the Prairie, you know, where they all live on the same ranch. It's that sort of a thing. Most people go to work, right? They drive to work and the wife stays home. We work together. That's the only. It's like a farm, you know. It's just only there's no animals but bulldogs, you know.
Only you would compare it to a farm.
Well, it really is. You know, we have our chores. We both work at the same thing. It's achieving the same ends, you know.
Yeah, I'm not wondering if that isn't something that might be a key to a success in your relationship, too, the fact you do have a common interest, obviously.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure, because although Daryl and I are completely different personality-wise, we share the same ideals and the same goals in life, and we share the same main interest. And I think you've got to have that to make a successful relationship. I really do.
Turn off the same radio stations. Turn on the same ones, you know.
Yes, I'm used to that. I've heard that one so many times. The next question I want to ask is something that I'd heard not too long ago. A question that was asked of you from Candy Tuscan, I think. I don't know if it was direct or she just got it from a poop sheet of some kind, but nevertheless, something about you going into acting.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, I came, as I told you earlier, I came from a theater, South Coast Repertory Theater. And was an actress before I started working, and a singer, too, before I started working with Daryl in pop music. And I always said, as soon as we get the music thing going and there's a little free time, I would love to do some acting again. So this fall we're looking around for some, the right roles, and I might pop up on, a Beretta or whatever, doing a straight acting role.
All right, is that going to affect the Captain and Tennille as a group?
No. Oh, no. This will be something I'll just do separate, outside of, like we're...
Working bars again. I'll do
Tell them what you want to do.
I want to maybe do some film scoring. Maybe if Tony does a movie, I can do the music for it. So, we can still work together in a way.
Have you ever had any, Daryl, any aspirations to act at all, or do you like music so much that you'll stay with that?
If someone knocks on the door and says, "Here's a part," I might read it, and if there's a cue card down there for me, I failed, poetry at school, and Tony could just sit. I mean, I've heard her read whole lines to this day from when she learned poetry at 16. She could recite it. And I can't even remember 2 lines, So I'm going to need help if I get into acting.
Something we probably should have brought up earlier, but let's bring it up now. Your concert at Merriweather Pavilion, that'll be taking place tonight and tomorrow night.
All right.
And is it different somehow from the TV program, or is it going to be about the same sort of a format, the word we used earlier?
Oh, boy. No, it is... This is something that's really important to us, and that's why we're doing, 4.5 months of touring, essentially one-nighters. So we want people to know that what we do on stage has nothing to do with our television show at all. It's almost an hour and a half of solid music. There's no comedy. I mean, there's no comedy sketches or hat jokes or silliness or anything like that. It's just good, solid music. And we also have, and we've been told this everywhere we've gone, the best sound system touring on the road this summer. Everywhere we've gone, we've played in some halls that were almost impossible to get a good sound, and we did it. And we've got some fine musicians with us, and the compliments have just been incredible on the show. We're very proud of it. And I want people to understand that they're not going to come and see our television show. It is completely different from the TV show.
What do you like? Now, you played clubs before you actually got into all this. Do you like doing clubs better, or do you enjoy doing the concert thing?
I like both. The only thing I don't like in a nightclub is the smoke, concentrated smoke,
Let me put my cigarette out here for just...
No, 1 cigarette's fine, but it'll kill you. Waitresses have less life expectancy and everything, but I like watching people's reaction. And the only thing I don't like about big concerts like the Beach Boys I used to work with was they're so far away, so many people, I couldn't see reaction or hardly feel it. You just feel this big, massive wave of something, And what we do is on this tour, we've tried to keep our concerts between 3,000 and then maybe 8,000 at the most people. And if it's 8,000, the people are very close to the stage, and because it's just, you lose that communication, and I don't like that.
I always want to be able to see at least the first row. One of the nice things about doing the outdoor theaters, which we love, that's been our favorite on this whole tour, is the outdoor theaters, is that oftentimes, since it's summer, you begin the show and it's still daylight. It's still enough light that you can actually see the audience, and you can see their reactions, and you can really get involved with them before the darkness descends and you lose them and they become the vibe, instead of the individual people. Because our opening act goes on, and Kip's on for about 40 minutes, 35, 40 minutes, and then we come on and do our part of the show, and it's still light. And always I want to be able to see at least the front row. sometimes there's a spill from our lights that I can see the people in the front row at least. I hate it when the front row is back enough to where the lights are so blinding in my eyes that I can't see the people. That's one advantage about working in clubs, is that they're so close that you can see everything. But the disadvantage is that I was singing 5 hours a night without stopping 6 nights a week, and it just killed me. Really did. It's very...
Did you have any, like, oh, I'm sorry, did you want to say something?
Just one thing, Muskrat Love was a proven hit out of the nightclub because it was the most requested in the nightclub, and that's one reason why we decided on releasing it as a possible hit.
Is that right? Out of a nightclub? That's
Yeah,
really
see,
wild.
in nightclubs you get to test material. That's one of the things that we miss, is the fact that we got to test a lot of material to see what, in fact, a lot of the tunes we've recorded were things that people liked in the clubs that got the most requests and were favorites. We are testing in a way, but we have to test after an album is done, because then we go on the road and we perform songs from the album. And that way we can see which songs from the album get the most response according to applause and the mail we get back. We were just home for 5 days after having been out for 2 months, and there was just barrels of mail waiting with response from the concert so far. Yeah, it looks like, because of that response and because of mail response to the album when it was originally released, it looks like Circles will be our next release, which will come out around the 15th of August.
Circles is going to be the next one. That's the next one we have to watch for now, is Circles.
Is the one. Yeah, it's gotten such incredible response in all of our mail and at our concerts that we feel there's something there that's going to catch some people. So we're going with it on the 15th of August.
What's one of the strange incidents that's happened, like either on tour, concert, personally, but for the most part in dealing with people on a concert tour or something like that? Do you have anything really weird that's ever happened, a big story that always goes around the troops as you travel, something else to talk about?
I don't know. We've had some people do some rather strange things. Our road manager, bless his heart, is probably one of the best in the business, but he catches everything. And we played a concert recently at Blossom Theater, which is a big outdoor theater like Meriwether Post, and it was just jammed. I mean, there were people all over the lawns. There were thousands of people there. And after the show, we were able to see a few people. We always see handicapped children if they need to come back, if they want to come backstage and things of that sort after the show is over. But then to get out of the theater and to get back to our hotel so we could catch our flight, we had to go out another entrance rather than the one that normally you go out of. Well, 9:15 in the morning, phone rings in our road managers. This lady was absolutely irate because we came out of the other door and she sat there waiting for us and carried on and on and on and on and on and told Pat how terrible it was to be a liar. And Pat said, well, didn't you like the show? I thought the show was wonderful, but we should have seen them in person too, Things like that are hard to deal with because you feel really bad about people like that. But that's not exactly a funny thing, but it shows what road managers and people like that have to put up with on the road. People don't understand what you go through sometimes.
I've talked to a couple of people that deal with you from A&M Records, and was talking to them about possibly interviewing after the show because at the time we were talking about a telephone interview, and they said, well, gee, it might be a little bit tough because one of the things they do like to do is meet the people afterwards. Do you like to get together with the people?
Last year was possible. This year it's getting, I think TV has done some weird things to people because your face is so close, you're in their living rooms, and then suddenly everybody knows you personally, and I feel, well, I know them too, in a way, but it gets a little sticky because you meet one person and they want to talk to you for 5 minutes, but then there's 2,000 other people that want to see you, and it gets really strange because, you could end up being there for 12 hours talking to each person, which I wouldn't mind doing, but there's just not enough time, so we've had to cut out a lot of the personal people. Recently, the most people I've been meeting are the maids and stuff in the hotel, and I have talks with them and stuff, but it's really true. The whole thing has become a little touchy because you want to spend as much time with each person, and you just can't do it.
I feel like I fell into a category there somewhere.
No, it's just that when we went out last year, we did, actually, when I think about it, it's so crazy because we did 11 dates as a headliner. That's all we did before we had to quit for TV. So we never really have established ourselves as a concert act yet, other than when we opened for Mac Davis and opened for America and the Beach Boys a couple of times. But that was, way at the beginning. And so we were able to, we would stay sometimes 2 hours after each show signing autographs, talking with each person and so forth last year. Well, we could handle it last year because there weren't that many that we couldn't sit and chat with each one. This year, you're talking, Daryl's not exaggerating when he's talking about, 2,000 people would file through and see you. And if we did that and I talked to each one, I wouldn't be able to sing the next night. So it's really a dilemma. Where do you cut it off? So what we've done is we have, occasionally we'll get a letter, like last night, for an example. We were in a town, and we had a letter from a family who had driven 300 miles to see us with their little boy. It was his birthday, 4 years old, and could they see us, Well, that, you have to make an exception. They're going to go 300 miles to see you. You can at least say hello after the show and give them an autograph. And as I said, we've seen handicapped children in wheelchairs, and people who are mentally retarded and things of that sort. But the other people, we kind of hope they understand why. We can't stay afterwards and talk forever and ever, and then won't be able to sing the next night, because one-nighters are tough.
But once again, Captain Tennille, thank you very much for the interview, and we'll be looking for your record circles. Okay? And good luck at Merriweather. Once again, they're going to be at Merriweather tonight, Wednesday night, and tomorrow night, Thursday. And what's the show times? What time does the show start?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. 8 o'clock is show time, and hope to see you all out there. Thank you very much for the interview.
Okay.